So the first thing that we're going to show as part of the AEMMA program is our longbow archery program, and Paul will take over from here.
Welcome to you all. Because of safety reasons and space limitations, we obviously can't put on a shooting demonstration of archery. So instead, we decided to present you with a fascinating story, which I hope will illustrate some of the principles that we try to practice during our archery sessions. And I want to tell you the story of the Battle of Agincourt, which has come down as an almost legendary battle through the ages. Now imagine a morning in October 1415. Two armies are ranged across a plowed field, facing each other. It has just stopped raining. The previous night it was a drenching downpour, and the field is a sea of mud. The English forces number about 6,000, 5,000 of whom are longbow archers. They shoot bows like this. Big bows, bows that are massively powerful. 3 to 4 times the power of the bows that we use today. And they're big because the stress of the wood, the stress has to be spread across the fibers of the wood, and so the bow has to be very large in order to take the stresses involved. This is a typical war bow. It's made to actually replicate the measurements of a medium-sized war bow. They ranged quite a bit larger than this. The arrows they shot were almost like small spears. They weighed up to 4 ounces. They used lighter ones like this to reach the enemy at long ranges. And then as the enemy came closer, they would use one of these 2 types. This type was mostly to pierce mail, and as you can imagine, that long, slender, it's called a needle bodkin, and it's meant to slip between the rings of mail. And this other one is called the short bodkin, and it's meant to punch a hole through armor plate. So these are the tools that they would be using. So the 2 armies are facing each other. The English were drawn up in blocks of armored men, and between the armored men were the archers, formed into wedges. And on both sides of the English army also were archers. There are woods along each side of the field, defining the sides of the field. The French, opposing them well out of bowshot range, perhaps 400 yards away, if not more, are arranged in 3 rows. And they are constantly jostling to try and be in the front row, because all the French noblemen were vying with each other for the honor of being the first to strike at the English. So their command is very divided, because each of the noblemen wants to have all the honor, or as much honor as he can get. And therefore, they're not really wanting to follow anybody's orders. They are trying to be cohesive, but at the same time, act independently. And this will definitely be one of the faults that will act against them. So for a long time, these 2 armies just sit there and face each other for several hours, because the French are unwilling to move into bowshot range. They've had experience with English archers before when they've come off very badly. And so they want to keep their position and make the English attack them. The English, on the other hand, are already weakened. The English army has been suffering from dysentery. They've been exposed to torrential rains for quite a period of time. They're hungry because their provisions have run short. So they want to get the battle going. So what the English king does is he orders his archers and men-at-arms to pull up the stakes that they've planted in the ground. What they did was plant 6-foot stakes diagonally sticking out of the ground, so that if the cavalry came rushing toward them, the stakes would give them some protection. The stakes would almost act as if they were spearmen. It would give them the protection of from the horses coming right into the body of archers. So the English king orders up stakes. So they pull up their stakes and they go forward till they're within long bow range. This would be maybe 200 to 300 yards from the French lines. Replant their stakes, and it was at that point that the French could have attacked while the English were on the move, and had them they would have had them at a disadvantage. But again, because the French leadership was not cohesive, they missed the opportunity. So the stakes go down, and the battle starts with the English sending flights of arrows into the French. And they were sending flights of arrows at the rate of 12 arrows per archer per minute. So when you multiply this by 6,000 archers, you can imagine the arrow storm that would be descending upon the French. The French army can't stand there and just take the hits. They have to start doing something. So they start their advance. And first of all, come the horsemen. The cavalry comes out and charges. And they are completely overwhelmed by arrow fire from the front, from the sides. Too many hits, too many of them go down. The horses go insane with pain from the arrow wounds. And a very, very few make it to the English lines, but they can't do anything. There are too few of them by that time. The horses are now bucking and going crazy, throwing their riders, and heading back into the French lines. So the French lines are now being thrown into chaos because the second French line is meantime advancing. And they're advancing, mind you, not across a nice area over which they could walk easily. They're advancing through mud, which could be as much as knee-deep. Thick, very sticky clay mud. And for armored men, this is a real trial. They're having to keep their heads down because their arrows are still cascading toward them and having to slog through this mud. By the time they approach the English lines, they're practically exhausted. Although there are still so many of them, they manage to press back the English lines, but still, the English men-at-arms now do their part and manage to push back the French survivors. So, at this point, the remaining French line, there's still a French line there which is still numerous enough to totally overwhelm the English. But at the back, there's chaos because the French are seeing what's happening to the previous French attacks, and they're having to retreat. They decide to abandon the field and give up. And to make a long story short, this is a 4-hour battle, mind you. So to make it short and sweet, this was one of the major victories of Bowman and a very small force of English beating a far superior force. The French forces were reckoned at anywhere from 30,000 to 50,000. And the English had no more than 6,000 to 7,000 at the very most. The French casualties were about 10,000. The English casualties were 300 to 400. And still to this day, the English celebrate it as a great victory, while the French celebrate it as a great tragedy. Also, what came out of that battle is the victory salute, made famous by Churchill. That supposedly came from the fact that the English would wave their 2 shooting fingers at the French. The French had threatened to cut off the fingers of any archer that they captured to keep them from ever firing a bow again. So the English archers would sort of tease the French knights by always showing them the 2 fingers. Okay? Now we keep up archery practice here using longbows, smaller than the medieval ones, of course. But still, nonetheless, it's a great sport. It's a very basic weapon, very simple, although it takes some craft to make one. It's not quite as simple as it looks to craft a good longbow. Bowyers originally served anywhere from 10 to 15 years in apprenticeship before they were considered qualified bow makers. So we practice here every Saturday afternoon from 4 o'clock to 6 p.m. And you're welcome to come and try it out. It's free. First time you come out, you can try it out for free. We have club equipment, arrows, free instruction for you. It's great fun. In the summertime, we also do trips out to other clubs and other ranges. So come on out, give it a try. I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
Thank you.